Okay, so let's talk about fame. We're all taught that it's the ultimate prize, right? The thing to strive for. But what if that spotlight, what if it's actually a cage? That's exactly the wild idea we're diving into today from none other than Friedrich Nietzsche. In his work, The Gay Science, he argues that the lives of the famous aren't a triumph at all. He calls it a comedy.
So yeah, that really brings us to the core question here. Is being celebrated a blessing, or is it a curse? I mean, we're all kind of conditioned to want approval, to seek out recognition. It's human. But Nietzsche, he just grabs you by the shoulders and forces you to ask, what's the real price of all that celebration? Is it the victory we all think it is? Or is it something darker, a kind of hidden self-betrayal?
And this quote from Nietzsche, man, it just hits the nail on the head. He flat out says it's a tragedy. For him, fame isn't some victory lap. It's the beginning of the end. He argues that the second a great mind steps into that public spotlight, a kind of rot sets in. The real, authentic person starts to just fade away, and a performance takes its place.
So to really get what he means by this tragedy, we have to look at the before picture, you know? We need to see who this person was before the spotlight found them, back when they were what Nietzsche calls a sovereign creator. Now this is Nietzsche's ideal, the sovereign creator. They're not motivated by likes or followers or any of that. They're powered by this incredible internal engine, what he calls these spontaneous eruptions of their own spirit. And this is absolutely crucial. They have a genuine intellectual conscience. Think of it as this relentless, unshakable drive for truth, no matter what the audience or, the algorithm is demanding.
And when you put them side by side, the contrast is just, wow, it's so stark. You've got the creator on one side, spontaneous, always pushing themselves in this noble pursuit of self-overcoming. But then you have the performer. They become theatrical. Their work stops being this joyful eruption and instead turns into this laborious, grinding effort to manage their own reputation. They basically stop creating and start curating their own brand. Sound familiar?
So, what's the trigger? What causes this tragic shift from that authentic creator to the public performer? Well, Nietzsche points the finger squarely at one thing: the audience, or as he'd call it, the herd. He says their expectations become a prison.
And this quote just illustrates the problem so perfectly. See, the public, we don't really want a complex, evolving human being. Now, we want an idol. We want something consistent, predictable, a simplified version of that person that we can easily understand and, worship. We don't want a person, we want a monument.
And these are the bars of that prison he's talking about. The herd demands you stay the same. They force you to flatten your big, messy ideas into simple little sound bites. And if you dare to change, to show some doubt, what Nietzsche calls a noble deviation, you get punished for it. Because at the end of the day, he argues, the public doesn't want your messy, authentic truth. They want the theater. They want the hero they've already built up in their own minds.
So what do you do? Well, here's the trade-off. To survive in that spotlight, the celebrated person builds a public mask. They have to. And in doing so, they give up what Nietzsche calls their ancient pride, that real, inner-directed dignity of the sovereign creator. And they swap it for this shallow, theatrical pride that runs entirely on applause. It's a deal with the devil, really, and the price you pay is your own authenticity.
But what's the actual internal cost of wearing that mask, day in and day out? This is where Nietzsche's analysis gets really, really devastating.
Because the damage isn't just on the outside. The real tragedy, the one he's talking about, it happens on the inside, quietly, where nobody else can even see it.
He calls it a shriveled internal life. I mean, that phrase is just chilling, isn't it? Nietzsche's point is that by constantly performing for others, the celebrated person's inner world, their capacity for real thought, for doubt, for growth, it just starts to wither away. It shrivels. That once vibrant inner landscape becomes a barren desert.
And he says it happens in stages, like a downward spiral. First, you're just acting the part, right? Giving the crowd what it wants. But then, the mask starts to feel a little too comfortable. It starts to fuse with your face. You actually start to believe your own performance, your own hype. And that, right there, is the point of no return. Because at that moment, you lose the ability for honest self-doubt, which is the engine of all real growth. And just like that, the intellectual conscience, it's gone.
And let's be super clear about what this intellectual conscience is, because it's everything to Nietzsche. It's that little voice inside your head that asks the hard questions. Am I wrong here? Could I be better? What is actually true, separate from my public image? When that voice gets drowned out by the roar of the crowd, well, that's when the creator is well and truly lost.
And this brings us to the final state, the end of the line.
The person who was once this free, dynamic explorer becomes a slave. They're no longer creating their future. They're just a laborious worker endlessly polishing the statue of their own past self. They become nothing more than a custodian of their own myth.
Okay, so this all sounds pretty bleak. Is there a way out of this trap? For Nietzsche, the answer is yes. But the escape route isn't more fame or more recognition. It's a radical embrace of a totally different path, the path of the free spirit. The free spirit is the antidote to this whole comedy. This is the person who manages to separate their greatness from public approval. They value a sovereign, playful existence above all else. And here's the key. They have to be willing to be misunderstood, or even forgotten. Because for them, protecting that ancient pride of their soul is so much more important than any award or any amount of public adoration.
And that, right there, is the ultimate takeaway. Nietzsche's basically telling us to completely shift our goals. The point of life isn't to become some static monument, a celebrated man frozen in time. No, the real prize is to stay a dynamic spirit, to be constantly in motion, always growing, and never, ever finished.
Which, of course, leaves us with a very modern and, let's be honest, a pretty uncomfortable question. In our world, a world completely obsessed with personal branding, with influencers, with curating every moment of our lives online, is the kind of freedom Nietzsche is talking about even possible anymore? I mean, have we all, in some small way, become these laborious workers in the service of our own little myths? Definitely something to think about.